Amun. Peace, 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 peace. It's Chocolate Amun Ra. And this is part 3 of class. Gaddafi. Why he was murdered. Put all these things together. Understand the human trafficking slave trade. Over 200 million people are slaves today. But you don't want to know the truth. You don't want to know. Because you don't want to do your research. So you don't want to mess with your Christmas and your New Year's and all your holidays, that your tradition that you've been doing for so long. This thing been going on for centuries. Slavery is not new. And that's why a lot of you get on my page and you be telling me, oh, we need to spread this out. Spread what out? You got slavery right here in America. It's just a different type of format. You just don't want to know. That's why I come to the conclusion in school this week to teach you about modern day slavery and how it spreads around the world. You think you know, you don't got a clue. It's a puzzle, piece of the puzzle. But the puzzle's all simple. It's always about money. Money, gold, cash flow, currency. I showed you that in part 3. See, Gaddafi wanted the Arab world and the Africans to come together and basically shut down the currency dealing with the dollar bill, because the dollar bill in America and the dollar bill in Europe has no backup. But the gold has backup, because gold is part of the resources. It's a mineral. And they wanted everybody to pay in gold. And if you ain't got enough gold, guess what? You're finished. So, America and Europe and the other parties, it depends on the strength of the dollar, which it really doesn't have that much strength. They wasn't going to allow that to happen. The parties that be, that's in power of the banks, control the cash flow dealing with the dollar bill, euro, and America. They don't want to deal with gold because they don't have that much gold in the first place. Understand that. So when you're dealing with the human cargo, which is part of the slave trade, and minerals and different resources, it's always about money. So when you looking at this fact that you see videos and pictures of all this inhumane activities that's going around the world, it ain't just Africa. No, I already showed you that. Look at the end of part 1 and the beginning of part 2. Now, why are they showing Africa? It's the fear factor as well. Now, you got the Iranians, the Arabs, helping that slave trade over there in Libya. But you also got some nations in Africa that's also helping, that's benefiting from the slave trade. Ask yourself a question again. Why Great Britain, French, America, none of these European countries came to help out Libya? Just think about that. It's common sense. They're not going to stop big business. Human trafficking is big business. They got human fucking sex slaves trading. Why the hell they not trying to stop that? Do they really care? No, it's not. I told you Barack Obama was part of that too. Signing a treaty. I showed you that. Now in his mind, he's probably thinking, oh man, what did I do? I done something wrong. All you did was help open up them doors. Or did he know all along? You see, when you play the big boys game, politics, sex, money, and religion are the 4 horsemen of a populace. Those are 4 gods that rule the world. And the problem is, we all got problems in our own backyard. We gotta fix them here. But the power may be, they're gonna always get rich. You just haven't figured it out yet. Let's get back into Gaddafi. Let's show you more evidence. I hope you're learning. I hope you took your pencils and papers. Because remember, I told you I want you to do research. You ain't gonna learn none of this in school. You ain't gonna learn none of this in religion. You think the church gonna sit down for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours and talk about this? Of course not. It's business. Everything is about John, Matthew, Luke, and John. 2 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. 1 Kings, 2 Kings. Deuteronomy. Revelation. Telling you a story, but not telling the real story. Telling the story that was going outside these walls that we live in. Let's pray to God.
Self-determination to Africa.
But more speculation has been raised on the reasons for Gaddafi from burying the American buck.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
We must not tolerate this regime using military force against its own people.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You'd think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli.
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold
family. As a matter of fact, we'll take you in. You go into exile and come on into our state. And come on in. But we taking your land, your resources. Why? Because you weak.
And yet be materially so rich? It's real simple. The answer lies adjustment programs, SAP, the structural adjustment programs that are imposed on African nations by the International Monetary Fund of Washington, D.C., the World Bank of Washington, D.C., and USAID. These three organizations come into Africa, then charge an interest rate on that money that they know the African nations can never pay back, thusly re-enslaving the entire continent.
I point out that when Dutch explorers would go through, let's say, the Americas, there's a good example here. Many of the places they arrived at were already abandoned. Our tribes leaders, our kings and queens, our priests, traveled the world. They were literate. They read and spoke many languages. They heard and knew. These guys are coming to take over the land. They got weird weapons, and this is what they're gonna do. They went back to their tribe, told everybody, gather up your stuff. We have to leave. There is an invading force coming. We have to go. So many tribes were warned. When this invading force came, many times they came and found the place deserted and just claimed it as their own.
Why was Muammar Gaddafi killed? Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he, along with the other African heads of state, were about to bring into existence Africa's first central bank. They were erecting a central bank in Africa, which was going to do what? Back its money to the resources under the ground in Africa. Now, what would that have done to the global economic order? Remember, the United States dollar isn't backed on any natural resource. The British pound isn't backed on any natural resource. The Canadian dollar, the European Union, their currency isn't backed on any natural resource because Europe doesn't have a lot of natural resources. Africa does. So if they would have been successful in creating a central bank of Africa, coming up with a unitary currency and then backing that currency to the material wealth under the soil, they would have bankrupted every other economic system in this world from America to Europe to China. That was revolution. And that's why Muammar Gaddafi had to be assassinated, because he was about to help the African heads of state eliminate modern slavery and neocolonialism from the continent.
One of the things that you find is that European culture begins to take off after the first civilized Europeans, the Greeks, make contact with Kemet or Egypt.
Greeks themselves were not white people, and even today, you any Greek, I was in the military, I was stationed in Athens and Piraeus. We know we're cousins, let's stop playing.
We still have black Greeks living in Greece right now to this day, and people pretend they don't know where they came from, but there are black Greek people living in Greece right now.
People of Ireland long before, and the people of Scotland long before the Romans came, were already African peoples. Why if you see a picture of a Scottish person, there's always somebody with like this real thick black hair, right? And this real thick black. What do you think they're trying to tell you?
You know, they came out with a report a few years ago saying that King Tut shared DNA with men up in Britain. And the thing is, the Egyptians went into Britain, particularly Scotland, later on down the line. As a matter of fact, Scotland is named after an Egyptian princess, Scotia. And many of the descendants of those Egyptians are there to this day, but they're now known as gypsies. And the term gypsy is just a variation of the word Egyptian.
Whites have long hair, blacks have short curly hair. What is the reason for that? Black's hair, your follicle, my follicle, is not round, it's flat, like a ribbon. So you know how Christmas you rub your hand on the ribbon and it curls up? Well, that's the way our hair do. White hair is like a soda straw, it's round, so it hangs. What is the purpose for that? All of the main arteries that take the messages and information from the brain to the rest of the body pass through the human neck. So if you're caught in an ice age, you've got to grow enough hair to shield the neck, to insulate the neck. Otherwise, you're gonna die.
Brothers and sisters, gods and goddesses. You see, when you begin to do your research, understand, when you do your research about many different things, you begin to understand why and how come. You begin to understand the whys and how come. You'll understand it. What I mean by why and how comes is why they had to kill Gaddafi. I told you. The dollar bill, the Canadian bill, the British bill has no backup. They don't really have resources where they live in. All the resources in Africa, the land of the milk and honey, which is being raped as I speak. You see, when you learn a little bit about ancient times, and you begin to understand its culture and understand the travels, understand science, understand the mathematics, understand the contribute of human history. What happened? Who conquered who? Why? When you understand this, you begin to realize what you think you know is not always so. Gaddafi was killed. He was killed because he was going to change the face of the earth, dealing with the gold currency. And other African people, presidents, kings and queens, was gonna back him up and have a black-owned bank, but the currency was gold. That would have had rocked the European world, rocked America, rocked the Canadians' currency out the window. Huh? What the Americans did? You had a black president. Tell me this. What did Obama do for black people, specifically blacks? No one else here in America. Tell me, what did Barack Obama done for Americans when he was in office? None of you can explain this. And you can't. Because he never did nothing specifically for black people here in America. You was just happy he was the president. Most of you voted for him just because the color of his skin. Let's be real, because you ain't never heard of him. 20 years ago, you never heard of Barack Obama. Let's keep it real. He got in office. What happened? Did you get a raise? Did your salary go up higher? Was more jobs opened up to help black people? Was black people's lives more safe in the streets according to the police? Can I get arrested without being killed? I cannot voice my opinion? I'm not moving fast enough. I showed you my hands. You still shoot me. This was going in Barack Obama's presidency. Did he say anything to stop this? Did he mention to why this abuse was going on when these women were dying in prison? I mean, in jail? Huh? Let's get one thing straight. Before you get to know what's going on outside your country, where you were born, make sure you know what's going on here. Black people, I know you don't like to hear it, but the truth is the truth. Your average African people, and I know a lot of scholars don't want to hear it either. They're not worried about you like that, because they got their own problems. It's a completely different country. The biggest country in the world. Now, I'm not telling you not to love your African people. What I'm telling you is to wake up to common sense, because it's reality. Slave trade is here. Slave trade had always been here. And according to the documents and according to the videos that I've showed you, it started off with 48 million, then it skyrocketed to over 200 million people around the world are slaves. Huh? When we gonna understand what's going on? Are we? Understand. I'm gonna show you another video right quick. It's got to do with the Clintons. Pay attention.
This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth, and we're all familiar by now, I'm sure, with Hillary's emails. And while the corporate state media has been focusing on trivial matters, we here are going to be revealing the blatant war crimes that our Western elites are guilty of. Now, these include embedding al-Qaeda into the U.S.-backed opposition in Libya, Western nations scrambling for first dibs on Libyan oil, the nefarious origins of the Viagra mass rape claim, and this is the real zinger in my opinion, concern over Gaddafi's gold and silver reserves. The Western central banking monopoly is on shaky ground. The US dollar is grossly inflated, and the euro is really just as fragile as Gaddafi's regime was once NATO violated the 1973 no-fly zone resolution. Now, the power to create money out of thin air is at the heart of this new world order, and that's one of the major reasons that Gaddafi had to go. The April 2011 email sent to Hillary from Sidney Blumenthal had the subject line, France's client and Gaddafi's gold. And this email identifies French President Nicolas Sarkozy as the brainchild behind the attack on Libya, focusing on getting Libyan oil and ensuring French influence in the region, which would obviously help his domestic approval rating. And then, of course, this huge threat that Gaddafi's gold and silver reserves posed to the stability of the fiat euro currency. So it's undeniable that the email clearly states that the intentions behind the attack on Libya wasn't making the world safe for democracy or liberating the Libyan people or whatever propaganda was pushed at that time and is still reinforced today in the media. Wars are never humanitarian. The attack on Libya was about consolidating more power by using NATO and to prevent Gaddafi's gold dinar from toppling the fiat money empire that these Western elites have been building now for over a century. And now we have this from our good friends at the Free Thought Project. According to the email, which, by the way, has since been removed from the U.S. Department of State's website, it says here, this gold was accumulated prior to the current rebellion and was intended to be used to establish a pan-African currency based on the Libyan gold dinar. This plan was designed to provide the Francophone African countries with an alternative to the French franc. Source comment, according to knowledgeable individuals, this quantity of gold and silver is valued at more than 7 billion. French intelligence officers discovered this plan shortly after the current rebellion began, and this was one of the factors that influenced President Nicolas Sarkozy's decision to commit France to the attack on Libya. So Gaddafi planned to be economically independent from the central bankers. And when French intelligence found out about this plan for a gold-backed dinar, the gears of war were put into motion, and the propaganda about a humanitarian mission was then just broadcasted to the masses. Now, this just goes to show you how serious this fiat money business really is.
Gods and goddesses of Chocolate Amun Ra, I gave you enough evidence for you to put the rest together yourself. This class was different. I needed to show you this. You needed a little evidence. So those who's watching this channel, continue doing your research. It is all out there. It is all out there. All this information. Why they killed Gaddafi. It's based, the bottom line is this. It's always about money. Why do you have human trafficking? It's about money. The rich get richer and everybody else got to deal with it. That's facts. So, pay attention. Instead of you posting up videos and things like that and talking about what can we do, ask the question, what is their government doing? Do research what their government is doing. Why the United Nations can't walk into these countries and stop this? Why America and Great Britain and France doesn't go in there and try to stop it? They don't want to. It's business. And who's profiting? Who's profiting of all this inhumane suffering. The African blacks are dying rapidly by great numbers. And nobody gives a damn. Why? Because their own government don't give a damn. And this is what our people need to understand and stop skipping over what needs to be said. Because how are you going to have all these people in Liberia, the nation of Liberia, and their armies, their government, are just sitting back? That makes sense. Say a part 4, but mainly just talking. See ya.